Many of my students who've mastered most of the individual sounds of English tell me that they still feel their speech sounds different from a native speaker's, but they can't really identify why it sounds different. Usually this is due to incorrect intonation or sentence stress, and often this incorrect intonation or stress occurs in prepositional phrases. If you want to know more, stay tuned and I'll explain. Hi, I'm Lori from Pronunciation Pro, and this is the fourth in my series of videos on intonation. The last one, intonation tip number 3, how to convey meaning, really seemed to resonate with many of my viewers, and several people asked me to do more videos on this topic. If you haven't watched that third intonation video, I would highly recommend doing that, because today's video kind of starts from where that one left off. I mentioned in that video that there are some phrases that native speakers pretty much always say with the exact same intonation. So today I want to talk about those very common phrases and how they should sound. Now, in my last video, I talked about content words versus function words. As a review, content words are nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, negation words, and numbers or numerical order words. These are the words that carry the meaning of the phrase or sentence. Function words are things like pronouns, prepositions, articles, helping verbs, and to-be verbs. These are words that make the phrase or sentence grammatically correct, but they don't usually convey the meaning. When a student is saying a commonly used phrase with incorrect intonation, it's usually because that student is raising his or her pitch on a function word instead of on the content words. This often happens with prepositional phrases, so that's what I want to focus on today. Let's go through some examples of very common prepositional phrases used in everyday speech. The first one is, of course. Notice that I'm raising my pitch on the noun course, not on the preposition of. Of course. Let's look at a sentence now that contains that phrase. I'm first going to say it with incorrect intonation, and then I'll say it with correct intonation. Incorrect would be, we will, of course, contact you when we've made our decision. Correct would be, we will, of course, contact you when we've made our decision. Here's the next phrase, in fact. Again, we raise our pitch on the noun, fact, not the preposition in. In fact. So in our example, incorrect intonation would be, I really like it. In fact, I love it. And correct intonation would be, I really like it. In fact, I love it. Another really common prepositional phrase would be as soon as. Many of my students incorrectly stress the preposition as instead of the adverb soon. So they might say, I will meet you as soon as I get off work. But the correct way to say this would be, I will meet you as soon as I get off work. Here's a phrase that's becoming pretty common in our workplace culture, outside of the box. We raise our pitch on the noun box, not on the preposition outside. In this example, incorrect intonation would be, we are looking for a team leader who can think outside of the box. And correct intonation would sound like this. We are looking for a team leader who can think outside of the box. And finally, we have the phrase in time. Instead of raising your pitch on the preposition in, you want to raise it on the noun time. So in this sentence, incorrect intonation would be, I hope he will get here in time to vote. Correct intonation would be, I hope he will get here in time to vote. There are lots of prepositional phrases that are very commonly used in everyday speech. I've included a document listing some of the most frequently used ones in the comments section below so you can use it for practice. And there are sentences for you to practice in that document as well. Now, a really important point to make is that in order to have room to raise your pitch on that content word, you have to start with a low pitch on the preposition. If you start up high in your pitch on the preposition, you have nowhere to go with your pitch to make that content word stand out. For example, that phrase, in fact. If I start up high on in, I can't really raise my pitch any further on fact, and I basically have to go down in pitch from there. In fact. So make sure you're starting these phrases with a lower pitch. And another important point is that we say the prepositions in these phrases with a lower volume and a shorter duration. This also helps to make that content word really stand out. So again, in fact, not in fact or in fact. And as I mentioned in my previous video on intonation, the emphasized word is going to depend on the meaning you're trying to convey. There are times when prepositions are stressed. For example, the keys are on the table behind you. Here, we want the person to turn around and look at the keys on the table. So we're stressing the preposition behind. So always keep the meaning front and center when you're deciding which word to emphasize. So if you enjoyed this video and found it useful, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. And be sure to let me know in the comments section if there are any topics you'd really like me to cover in future videos. In the meantime, happy practicing, and I'll see you in the next video.